A very good afternoon to all the viewers. And as part of the Medical Education Technology Unit of Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Medical Sciences and Dr. RML Hospital, we present this second series in this webinar series for research methodology. Today we have Dr. Aanchal Kakkar as our speaker, who is an associate professor in the Department of Anesthesia and a very valuable member of the research fraternity of the hospital. She's also member secretary of the ethics committee, and she wears many hats in the form of different responsibilities that she takes in the education and research of the institute. So, and we also have two participants, Dr. Raghav, who's newly appointed senior resident of our hospital, and Dr. Priyanka from anesthesia, who's an assistant professor. So I'll immediately invite Dr. Aanchal to start, and towards the end, we can have questions from all the panelists and a healthy discussion on the same topic. Thank you. Dr. Aanchal, please.
Thank you so much, sir. So let me just start off with my topic, which is how to select a research topic, how to frame research question and hypothesis. So when I talk about selection of a research topic, what generally comes to our mind is that we have to do an extensive literature search so that we are well versed with the area of our interest, the subject which we are going to formulate our research in. Once you do an overall research in the literature, you actually come across various gaps in the literature where there are not sufficient evidences present, and there are gaps between the existing knowledge, and there are few problem areas which you identify. From there, your research formulation starts. Once you identify the gaps and the problematic areas, you formulate, you think about that area, you talk to yourself and formulate a research question or an hypothesis. Suppose, since I am from anesthesia, the immediate thing comes to me is anesthesia, laryngoscopy, intubation. So if I think my area of interest is laryngoscopy and the response associated with laryngoscopy, so I will do an extensive research. I will I will see whether the literature has sufficient evidence to actually stop the responses or obtund or attenuate the responses associated with laryngoscopy. And I will dwell into the research further to find out what are the drugs which are used to actually stop or attenuate the laryngoscope response. And while researching the literature, I have found two drugs. One is clonidine and the other one is dexmedetomidine. So now the thing comes to my mind that there is a sufficient evidence which says that both the drugs have been used to attenuate the laryngoscope response. So I have seen the literature, I have come to a conclusion that both the drugs are effective in attenuating the laryngoscopy response. But I find this gap that there are, both the drugs have not been compared with each other. So that is the gap which is there in existing knowledge. So I have identified that. Now I think, and I talk to myself, I formulate a hypothesis that maybe both the drugs are equally effective. Or maybe dexmedetomidine is better in attenuating the laryngoscopy response as compared to clonidine. So now what have I done? I have formulated a hypothesis, and similarly, I will formulate a research question, which is what is the effect of dexmedetomidine as compared to clonidine in attenuation of laryngoscopy response. So when I talk like this, it appears to be very easy, but when you actually do, you actually have to put your mind and soul into it and formulate a research question and hypothesis. Once I have formed a research question, I go back to literature and confirm whether I have missed upon anything which was already there in the literature, or whether I have included everything and confirm my hypothesis and research question. Then I actually identify the variables. I define the variables which I am going to study, and that is how my selection of research topic is done. So once you have done that, then again, the important step in this, the whole thing is formulating a research question. So let's talk. Why do we need to have a research question? As I already said, once you have done an extensive research, you actually get some questions. These questions which actually lead to formulation of research question are the backbone of research. They help you to narrow down from a very large area to a specific topic. They clear your purpose of research. They focus, they tell you about the gaps which are there in the literature, and they provide the research part to the investigator. They actually also help in formulating a methodology in your data analysis and calculating the sample size as well. So the characteristics of the research question is that they address the defined gap in the existing knowledge. They are original, they are new, they are relevant, they are focused, they are not very simple, and they are not very ambitious also. That is that they should be testable. Then they should be very relevant to the study population. It should be interesting to the researcher as well as to the student and the community. And it should be testable within the provided tools and the population with which the study will be or the project will be conducted. So, as I said, it should be clear, that is specific enough, and should not have unnecessarily explanation. It should be concise, expressed in fewer possible words. It should be focused to a specific topic. It should not be complex, and it should not be answered in yes or no. It should be feasible. That means that you should be able to do it in a given time frame and the constraints which are there in your institute. So to remember the characteristics of a good research question, there is a mnemonic, FINER MAPS, which actually tells you F for feasible, I for interesting, N for novel, that is new, E for ethically suitable, R for relevant for the community which you are going to study on, M for manageable, that is it should be testable, A for appropriate, and P for potential value and publicity. That means that it should actually, you should gain, there should be a gain in a knowledge by doing that, by solving that research question and by doing that research. So how to formulate? Again, going back to the same thing, pick up a broader area. As I took the example of laryngoscopy, I'm taking a broader area, laryngoscopy, it has multiple aspects to it. Then you do the preliminary research and find out the gaps. So whether it is associated, it has some side effects. What are the side effects of laryngoscopy? What are the hemodynamical aspects to it? I have done the research and I found that it leads to very exaggerated blood pressure when you do laryngoscopy. So then you consider your population. Then you start asking your open-ended question, which should generally start why, how, what. Should not be answered in yes or no. Then asking these questions, you jot down your points, your question, and then you narrow down your topic of research. From laryngoscopy to now, I have narrowed down that I want to study the effect of laryngoscopy on the blood pressure. And I want to study, there is an effect, there's a known effect that it causes hypertension. I want to study how this hypertension can be avoided or can be attenuated using different drugs. So this is how you narrow down to your research. And when you narrow down, there are 4 elements which you have to cover while writing down a research question. These are called PQ elements. P stands for patient or the problem. I is for the intervention. C is for the comparator wherever it is present, and outcome. O is for the outcome, which is your outcome you are going to study. So I have formulated the research question, which goes like, what is the effect of dexmedetomidine and clonidine on attenuation of laryngoscopy response in patient undergoing intubation? So if I split this research question into the PQ elements, it would come like, my study population, that is the patient, are the patients undergoing intubation. I for intervention, what is the intervention I am doing? I am giving them dexmedetomidine. Comparator, with which drug I am comparing? In this, I am comparing it with clonidine. And what is the outcome which I am measuring is the hypertensive response because of the laryngoscopy. So this research question is complete in PQ elements and defining and telling you all the elements of the RQ. So once you have done that, if I tell you the important points again, it defines the population. I am repeating it again and again because if the research question is formulated in a very good manner, if it is adequate, it solves most of your further problems in the research. So defined population is there. It is very specific. Population is people who are going under individuals who are undergoing intubation. It is specific. I am looking at only the laryngoscopy, hypertensive response. It does not have any unnecessary word like significant or association or approve. It sticks to the topic which is going to be studied, that is the laryngoscopy hypertensive response, and it has all the PICO elements in it. So these are the important points which you need to remember while formulating or writing down the research question. So once you have written a research question, it can be of various types, that is qualitative and quantitative. Because the research itself, it can be divided into research, qualitative research and quantitative research. And as the name suggests, quantitative is it measures certain quantities, it is precise, it has a defined population group and variables. Generally, a smaller population group is required. It is a structured methodology is there, structured research design is there. When you formulate an RQ, that is research question, it generally starts with how, what, and why, and they are typically not answered in yes or no. So further, if I divide them in quantitative research questions, they are of three types: descriptive, comparative, and relationship. So descriptive, they generally tell you the description, the response of population to one or more variable. And it generally starts with what exists or what is occurring. Then comparative, just like the one I formulated, it actually difference between the two or more variables in a set of population, and relationship is defines the trends or interaction between two or more variables. So a general, the one I told you, and this is one is the more general one, descriptive kind of, how does social media affect the perception of general population on for COVID-19 vaccine? So population is general population, intervention is social media, outcome is perception for COVID-19 vaccine. So the other one, this was the qualitative, quantitative. The other one is the qualitative, which actually studies parameters like demographic profiles, behavioral changes or physiological changes. It can be broad, maybe specific, maybe non-specific. It can be non-directional. Research question which will be formed may go in any direction. Hypothesis may go in any direction. These generally discover, explain, or explore the research. And types are contextual types, descriptive, explanatory, or evaluative. One general example is, has there been an increase in obesity in children in last 1 year? So the population, if you see, is a broad population. It is non-directional. The research question is non-directional. That means the obesity, it can be yes or it can be no, whether it can be present or it cannot be present. So these are the two broadly divided qualitative and quantitative research and research questions. So once you have set a research question, now comes the research hypothesis. Hypothesis by definition is a logical construct interposed between the problem and the solution, which represent a proposed answer to a research question. And it gives it gives a direction to the investigator's thinking and facilitates the solution. So if we go back to the previous research question that I was studying, what is the difference between the effect of clonidine and dexmedetomidine on laryngoscopy hypertensive response, in attenuation of laryngoscopy hypertensive response? So my hypothesis can be, so I have a question which is formulated there. Now my hypothesis can be, it can both have same effect, or dexmedetomidine has a greater effect on attenuation, or clonidine has a greater effect. So it gives a direction that I have to formulate my study, research in a comparative manner. So hypothesis can be generated by deduction, That is from a specific thing, from a general thing to a specific thing. By induction, that is the opposite, by from a specific thing to an general thing, or by abduction. So characteristics of hypothesis is it reflects an inference about the variables. It should be a complete declarative sentence. It should be expressed simply. It should give an adequate answer to the research problem, and it should be testable. So types of hypothesis, there are different types. If you go theoretically, there are conceptual or operational hypothesis, variable, association or difference, mechanistic or non-mechanistic, alternative, or the null hypothesis. I'll be talking about all of them one by one. Coming to the conceptual or operational, conceptual ones are the broad declarative ones. They are broad. Obesity is associated with airway complication during anesthesia. It's a broad hypothesis. Operational ones are generally the which have testable variables, like obesity is associated with difficult mask ventilation during anesthesia. If you see the difference between these two, both of them talk about airway complication, but the conceptual one does not identify the variable. If you are managing an airway for the obese patient, what actually variable you are studying in which you think that there can be complication, it is not defined in that conceptual hypothesis. Whereas in operational hypothesis, it has the variable that is I am checking about the difficult mask ventilation. So when I do induce the patient, obese patient, I am checking the difficult mask ventilation, whether it is associated with obesity or it is not. So variable hypothesis, these can be univariable, bivariable, or multivariable. Univariable, as the name suggests, it actually studies the one variable. For example, hypothesis is neck circumference is a predictor of difficult laryngoscopy in obese patient. So I am just taking one variable, that is neck circumference, whether it is associated with difficult laryngoscopy in obese patient or not. Bivariable, it has two variables. Increased neck circumference is predictor of difficult laryngoscopy in obese patients than in normal weight patients. So I am checking one outcome in two set of population. So it is bivariable. Multivariable, increased neck circumference is a predictor of difficult airway as compared to Mallampati grade in obese patients. So now I have increased my variables. I am checking increase, I am comparing kind of increased neck circumference to Mallampati grading to predict difficult airway in obese patients. So there are multiple variables in this hypothesis. So the next one is causality or association difference hypothesis. Causality is actually cause and effect relationship. Like sedentary lifestyle promotes coronary artery disease. So there is a cause, sedentary lifestyle, and there is an effect, coronary artery disease. So this is a causality hypothesis. Association and difference hypothesis are, this asserts the association or the difference between the variables within single or two or more set of population. Like sedentary lifestyle is associated with coronary artery disease in obese patients. So now I have sedentary lifestyle, I have coronary effect, coronary artery disease, and I have obese patients. So this, I can further add on to it obese patient as compared to the normal weight patient. So this is association and difference. So whether it is associated, it can be further classified into greater effect, greater association or lesser association also. Next one is the mechanistic or non-mechanistic hypothesis. Mechanistic hypotheses are the common, they are generally set for the paraclinical, preclinical studies. They are more common in preclinical research attempts to define biochemical or physiological causes of disease or dysfunction, or maybe the pathways for therapeutic intervention. Non-mechanistic hypotheses are framed without any proper explanation. Now coming to the ones which are most commonly and widely used in our research are the alternate and the null hypothesis. So alternate hypothesis is generally in support of the research question. They are generally non-directional, but I mean to say they are open-ended. They can be open-ended or they can be one-sided also. And the null hypothesis is actually, it, as the name suggests, they are not in support of the research question, and they can have a negative modifier in their statement. So if I'm taking an example of laryngoscopy is associated with changes in blood pressure. So this is an alternate hypothesis, if I say, and it is open-ended. Associated with changes, it can be increase in the blood pressure or it can be decrease in the blood pressure. If I have to convert this hypothesis into null hypothesis, then I will have to say that this laryngoscopy has no changes. I have to add a negative modifier into the statement to make it a null hypothesis. So it will be laryngoscopy is associated with no changes in the blood pressure. So the take-home message from my talk is, whenever you plan to formulate a research topic, you want to select a research topic, you start with a broader topic, you do an extensive research, you narrow down to your area of interest, identify the gap, make it systematic, logical, and empirical. You formulate a research question according to the given format. It should be novel, focused, and interesting. And then you formulate your hypothesis, that is generally the alternate or the null hypothesis. Alternate hypotheses are generally either bidirectional or one directional. It can be one directional also. And the null hypothesis is usually having a negative modifier in the sentence. Null hypotheses generally are not usually required, but some people also say that null hypothesis should always be stated before starting formulating your research. So with this, I actually end up my talk, and I'm open to the questions which I think audience might be having. So shall I stop sharing my screen, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Aanchal. That was a very wonderful and crisp demonstration of what we were trying to achieve. And quickly, I'll start with Dr. Priyanka, who will have some questions, and maybe Dr. Aanchal can try and answer her questions. Dr. Priyanka, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to know what is the difference between a research question and an objective of the study?
See, a research question is basically, it is a question format. It will help you. Your objective is, the primary objective is in on which your sample size is based. You identify one variable. That is your objective. Suppose the example which I was giving, that dexmedetomidine and clonidine, I am comparing for attenuation of laryngoscopy response. So in this, objective is the attenuation of laryngoscopy response. That is the one variable I am looking at. So research question will be whether this drug is actually attenuating the laryngoscopy response or not. So are you able to get it? Your variable, yes, the thing which you are actually trying to study is the objective. And when you formulate it in a question manner, the whether it is actually doing it or not is the research question.
So can I just add to that? I would add is that the research question is more like a question, like you mentioned the example about perception of obesity in children. So that's a question. And when you put it into mathematical terms, the maths behind it, that becomes the objective. So how would you perceive? What are the parameters on which you will perceive? So once you put the parameters which are specific, it becomes an objective. And like she said, like if it be primary objective, it is linked to sample size. And then there can be other secondary objectives which are also part. So all these together will be research question, but mathematically they can be divided into the various objectives.
Okay. So this research question, does this research question leads to the type of the study that we do?
It will not actually lead to, but it can actually facilitate your research process, because the type of study you will actually form a study based on your tools which you are using. If you are using very like qualitative and quantitative, if you are defining it like that, then yes, what tools you are using? If I am taking an example that I am going to study the attenuation response. Okay, so I'm comparing, and it is it might be a randomized study, So my primary objective, my objectives and parameters will actually tell me what kind of study I am planning to. Research question is formulated according to that. Research question will not actually tell you that this is the study you are going to plan. This is the type of study.
Okay, ma'am. And what about the components of the research question? Is it like scientific and epidemiological terms can be used in this research question or in the objectives, or you can say in the research hypothesis, which is the topic today? But do we use the scientific terms and the epidemiological terms in the research question also?
Yes, you have to use scientific terms in research question. You have to use scientific terms, and the terms should be, as I already said, that PICU has to be PICU, that is patient, intervention, comparator, and outcome. The scientific terms have to be used in those manner. All these 4 elements of the research question should be present in the research question. The terms which are unscientific, like I can say unscientific terms and unnecessary words should actually be avoided in formulating a research question.
The research question should be answerable by the hypothesis.
Yes.
That would be the answer to your question. And like I again said, that the objectives will be derived from the research question, and so will the type of study. So there can be multiple types of study to answer the same research question.
Yes.
It depends on...
Like sir said, research question actually will not tell you that this is the type of study, but the same research question can be applied to different types of studies. It can be observational, it can be randomized, like that.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so Dr. Raghav,
thank you.
Quickly, can you also contribute any good questions to our webinar?
Good afternoon, ma'am. I have a simple question, ma'am. Actually, for the beginners, while they're choosing the research question, they will be doing the literature search. So while doing the literature search, they come across many conflicting evidences and many other different kinds of confusing things. So how to qualitatively select qualitatively segregate these type of differences between the articles?
Yeah, very good question, Dr. Raghav. Actually, you have to conflicting evidence actually leads to a further research, because some studies will say that this is better and the others will say this is better, and some will say that these are same. So you have to actually look at the RCTs. If you are picking up, do not pick up case series, do not pick up case reports, pick up the RCTs and deduce your hypothesis or research question from them. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. The next thing is that, ma'am, most commonly we use the p-value to whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis. Can you enumerate on this? Elaborate how the p-value is related to the hypothesis testing.
Nitin sir, can you actually elaborate?
Yeah,
I'm not
so I'll just, Raghav, I'll answer a question in a holistic way, which is a very good question. Actually, I was going to add to that. What Dr. Aanchal has beautifully told us is one part of our entire series. So the research question leading to the objectives tested by mathematically by a hypothesis and by statistical tests is what constitutes an entire package, right? Whether the answer is just by chance, if you want to say, compare 2 groups of children who are from different settings, you want to compare some disease occurring 2 groups of children. It can occur by chance also. Whether it is occurring by chance or not, there is a probability of error. That probability is known by various names. Some people call it alpha error. So if we keep a limit to that probability, and that limit can be tested mathematically. So that limit, you know that it is 5%, right? Because why 5%? Because when you have a normal distribution of the population, most of the samples would lie within 2 standard errors of the mean, which is 95% confidence intervals. Similarly, the standard error of the mean will also lie within the same normal distribution. That is how the random mathematics and the statistics go. So that 5% figure for p-value comes from there. If you want to make it more stringent, it can be even 3% or 1%, but that will be not feasible to test mathematically in all scenarios. You will need a very large sample size. So what I was coming to is that the hypothesis and another parameter is the effect size. You know, how much of the effect of an intervention or of a comparison is being tested. So all these lead to an appropriate sample size and appropriate confidence limits, which negate the possibility of chance in our results. So that is the relevance of the p-value. There will be other lectures which will cover this in detail. This is a very brief summary which I'm trying to explain, right? So I hope that it adds to something that you were asking.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Anything else?
No, sir. Fine.
Okay. So I have just one more point, Dr. Aanchal, very short, that everything was very nicely explained. I just want to add for Dr. Priyanka and Dr. Raghavs and for the other people who will be watching this webinar that the main purpose of research is to solve problems we face. Like you said that, you know, we'll pick out literature and some of the studies. So those studies are to help you in solving your problem. You're not going to try and ape the, you know, RCTs done somewhere else. For example, in surgery, you go in the ward. The problems are contextual. You see patients of soft tissue infections, you know, which are contextual to our society and to our hospital. There are so many unanswered questions, you know, why some patients have a worse outcome despite not having any immunocompromise. You have seen that in surgery so long. So if you try to answer that research question, it leads to, you know, you search for it, whether this question has been attempted before. You try and, you know, start collecting your data. So the research has to be contextual. You need not go and copy somebody's research and try to fit it into your. So the strength of the research is not the content or the topic of research. The strength is the method and the statistics behind it. That is what we are trying to drive home by these interactions, that it may be a very mundane day-to-day topic. The strength of the research is the method followed and the results and the biostatistics that are used. I hope that I can, you know, kind of explain to everybody. So at the postgraduate level, at the beginning level, it would be enough for the new researcher to learn about calculation of mean, how to make, you know, bar charts. That would solve the purpose of the research. You don't need to really answer a burning question in world literature in your PG thesis. Yes, when you become faculty, when you have to solve more problems in your own specialty, you can have more complex research. So it is contextual, and that is why how to choose the topic was a very important word. And the last thing which I want to add is about qualitative research. So most biomedical research is actually quantitative because it is mathematical and especially clinical research. Qualitative research is undertaken by mainly policymakers, you know. It is a pre-step to quantitative research. It identifies actually the problems, like she talked about, you know, whether there has been increase in some particular parameter in society. Now, after doing a questionnaire-based survey or a very basic, you know, interview-based survey, one will identify the mathematical problems that one can solve from that research, and that will lead to further quantitative research. So I think with this, we will have to stop. We are just at the last of our 40 minutes. A last word from Dr. Aanchal in 30 seconds. And thank you very much for all your participation.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope whosoever listens to this interactive session gains something and contributes in a better manner to the research they are doing.
Okay. Thanks to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.